difficulties. We have a new technical director today. Hopefully everything will go on smoothly. Welcome to another edition of Gupshup with Gayatri. I can see many new viewers here today. So let me explain what Gupshup is. Gupshup is an old-fashioned conversation, a relaxed casual conversation you would normally have in the comfort of your living room. But in these days of social distancing, that's a bit difficult to achieve. Hence, Gupshup with Gayatri. Old world conversations with new age technology. Does this mean no uncomfortable questions will be asked? Hina, they will, but not in the nation wants to know, Bharat puchta hai kind of way. In a more genteel, relaxed kind of a way. Our guest today is the dynamic, diligent, unstoppable go-getter Hina Nagpal.
Wow, that's quite an introduction, Gayatri. Thanks.
I have more to come, Hina. Hina is the managing partner of Automount Select, a boutique financial services firm. She has more than 2 decades of experience in private banking and wealth management across different banks like Barclays, HSBC, American Express, and Standard Chartered. She's won a CNBC Award for Financial Advising, a CNBC Financial Advisory Award. She's also addressed the Indo-US Chamber of Commerce, South Florida, as a guest speaker on the topic of investment opportunities in India. Welcome, Hina. It's a privilege to have you here.
Thanks, Gayatri. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, I have to say.
I know you have many different things competing for your attention on a Sunday evening. So really, thank you for being here.
No, it's lovely to be with you, honestly.
Okay. So let's dive straight into the conversation. Hina, you have so many years of experience in financial planning. So tell us, for this audience is predominantly women, should women be investing differently from men, and do they?
You tell me, do you all invest differently from your menfolk? Or are you less interested? How is it for you all?
I am less interested, I have to confess. It doesn't excite me.
Okay, so let me take this up, okay? Now, let's divide women into 2 groups, right? One is working women. Working when I mean all women are working, but working in office and getting paid for it. And then there are women who've chosen to be homemakers, who work twice as hard and still don't get paid. So if you're a working woman in office and getting remuneration for the same, there's a study which was done by Monster Salary Index, it's called, right? And it gave out a statistic which said that women earn 19% lesser than their counterparts. And the difference in that salary becomes even more stark when you go higher up the ranks, right? So that's a truth of India. The truth is also that women tend to take career breaks. Women tend to go slower during certain phases of their lives, okay? I know for me, personally speaking, I've had a financial investor come in, 2 of them, right, who said, we'll put in money, why don't you expand this? And I've had to turn it down because my children were small, my parents are aging, right? And I don't know of any man who really turned down an opportunity to make money. So the long and short of that is, because you have compressed years, you have a differential in salaries, you need to save harder to get to the same level of savings, let's say for your retirement or whatever your goal is, right? So you need to save more than what your counterpart does, right? And that's probably a good excuse. You can tell them that I'm going to contribute lesser to the house now because this is where it is. Okay. But now come to the other side. A lot of us choose to drop our careers. A lot of us choose not to take on careers. And we end up in situations where, we don't have that kind of money backing us up and or security of money, so to say, right? In those, there are two eventualities that can happen, right? A, um, God forbid, but eventualities can happen. Your husband's can expire, uh, or you could even end up in a divorce, right? These are facts of life. There's no point not addressing them, right? So in these cases, what I would suggest for you to do is make just some basic checkpoints, right? Make sure that all investments are in either a survivor name. Make sure that the will is written. So incidentally, when I was reading up, and Gayatri, you need to substantiate this with a lawyer. But what I read up was that in case you cannot prove that you've financially contributed to the building of the house, a house that you stay in, which is currently registered in your husband's name, then that does not automatically flow to you, right? So house being in joint name, essential. Investments being in joint name, essential. Wills to be written down, essential. Okay. And fact of the matter is also that divorces are increasing. Hopefully it won't happen to you. Hopefully your husband will be a gentleman if it were to happen. But there are times when people aren't so nice, right? I know of a client, and I'm addressing very soft issues out here, but it's important for somebody to say it like it is. Husband and wife built the whole business together, and it's a huge empire that they built, right? When they got divorced, the wife ended up getting only 20% of it, right? Because she did not do these basic checks. So I would even go as far out and say build an irrevocable trust for yourself, right? It's fair. And I know a lot of us feel reserved. A lot of us feel that these are issues that you wouldn't want to address with your husband. What will he think? Whenever you feel that, there are two things that should come to your mind, right? Ye sharam mein fir mar mat jana, number one, if that happens. And number two, if your husband is somebody who is secure, right? And he genuinely loves you, he will have the bandwidth to understand why you're doing this. So this was one of the serious questions, and you put it up right there in front. But I think...
so you're saying women need to invest... women need to invest more than men because their salaries, the starting point is also lower in many ways, and at the same time, and the investments should all be joint, and succession planning and will, and it's all part of the financial investments.
So everything, all of that, encompass it into your daily lives. And so that, there's never an eventuality where you don't know how to handle things.
Okay. Just, I mean, is it also true that most women are risk averse and hence their portfolio has more debt and less equity?
No, I don't think so. I think it depends. Okay, so from all the 20 years that I've come across clients, it is not that they're most risk averse, but there is an element that they don't get interested in the finances. And because they don't get interested in those finances and they don't know what's going on, that's why they perceive certain asset classes to be risky and they'd rather keep away from them.
Okay, yeah. I think I'd be called guilty of the same. Okay. So is there a right age to start investing? I mean, this is a very well-informed, well-educated audience, and everyone here believes that, investments are essential. Is there a particular age? I know there are some young people also here. When should you start investing?
Gayatri, if you're going to allow me, I'm actually going to pull out a screenshot that I want you to see. I'd done this for another group, but I'd like to pull it out.
Okay, so then I think, admin, would you make Hina the host? Then she can do screen sharing. Then I think you should screen share whatever you want to show, Hina.
Yeah, just a second. Okay, 1 second. You've got to give me a minute.
Okay. Yeah. Hmm? Hina, you are the host now, so you can do the screen sharing.
Yeah, can you see this?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So this is just very, very, very basic, which answers your question.
Can you make it bigger?
I'm just doing that. For Gayatri, for some reason, it's not allowing me to go into.
Okay, sure. So let me read it out. So you're saying monthly saving.
I'll get it down
Yeah.
for you. So
Okay.
what I'm saying is that what we did was that we said we are going to retire at 50, right? There is a lady in her 20s, a gentleman in his 30s, and let's say somebody else in their 40s, right? Now, if you start saving 10,000 rupees a month at the age of 20, at the age of 30 and 40, the differential when you retire, if you started saving in your 20s, you would have got 2.07 crores as your retirement corpus. If you started saving in your 30s, you would get a 72 lakhs of retirement corpus. And if you started as late as your 40s, your retirement corpus with 10,000 rupees per month saving, assuming a 10% rate of return, is only about 20 lakhs, right? So there is this concept called the power of compounding, which is what you need to use. What that means is that you need to start savings at the earliest that you can.
Okay. So Nikhil, Divya, the youngsters out there, you're just stepping into your careers. Listen to that. Start saving. Even if it's only you're saying 10,000 rupees per month.
Correct.
Would you like to assign a percentage to your basic salary? I mean, for youngsters, you earn X. How much of it as a saving habit or investing habit? Some easy tips.
Why don't you work it backwards, right? Work it backwards and saying I need. So how you have to work this out is, let's say that today's date I spend, let's say 1 lakh per month on my household expenses, right? And let's say I'm going to retire. I've got a period of retirement to about 40 years of age. So what I will do is I will build in inflation, and there are lots of tools that you can use on the net, which is available, which basically says that my 1 lakh has to be worth how much when I retire for it to have the same purchasing power. So am I losing you, Gayatri? Do I need to simplify this?
No, it's fine. I'm sure everyone can follow. Divya, yeah. You are able to understand? They can follow. It's fine enough. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, you have to put in the inflation factor so that your purchasing power of money doesn't go down, right? Yeah. And then you arrive at a retirement corpus or whatever that your goal is. And then you work it backwards, saying that I can earn 8%, I can earn 10%, and you work it backwards on how much you need to save per month. And these are tools which are easily available off the internet. But I strongly am of the opinion that you all must have a financial advisor who helps you with all these things. Yeah. And when you're starting off, there will always be a gap, right? That number might throw up as 30,000 and you are saying like, I earn only 50,000 a month. This is not going to happen. So my point is just start saving. There'll be times later on in your career when your propensity to save will be higher than what your expenditure is. So you can make up then, but just start saving.
Yeah. I remember my first job, I had the princely salary of 4,500 rupees at ZTV, and my first boss immediately said, Gayatri, save 10% of your salary. And I was like, I'm earning what is 4,500 rupees? I want to spend all of it. So this is what 97. But yeah, I think youngsters need to be, especially because we are in the middle of a pandemic. I think suddenly, you're talking of saving more. So let's take an audience question here. Aarti, would you like to come in and ask your question here? And then we'll go to Manisha. Yes.
Okay. So my first question would be, you spoke about irrevocable trust. What do you mean by that? I mean, I didn't really understand what it is.
So basically, I'm just going to simplify it and tell you. An irrevocable trust is which cannot be unbound. Okay, it's very difficult to unwind an irrevocable trust. So when you make a revocable trust, it can be unbound. So let's say your husband makes a revocable trust for you and you're the beneficiary of the trust and you end up in a divorce situation and he says, hey, I'm revoking your trust, right? You don't want to be in that situation. An irrevocable trust is when you cannot reverse it.
So is a trust like a saving? Is there another word for saving, or is something different?
You want me to tell you what a trust is?
Yeah, because
Okay,
I've never invested.
Okay. Hina? Yeah.
I'll get onto that, right? So when you're investing, you can invest in your personal name, you can invest in the name of a company, you can invest in various ways. A trust, think of it as something like where there is a person who's putting in money into that trust, right? There is a manager of the trust who manages the trust, right? There are trustees who ensure that the purpose of the trust is met, and you will come in as a beneficiary of the trust. So it's a structure which is made to ensure that the money is used for certain specific purposes, right? Now in India, we don't have inheritance tax, so this concept is not that popular. But overseas, where there is inheritance tax, this is a very popular concept. And it's only a matter of time when inheritance tax is going to come into India. So even like if you're going in to buy a property right now, if you buy it in your personal name and then you transfer it in the name of a trust, let's say inheritance tax comes and then you start making a trust, you will entail the stamp duty. So if any of you are buying a property right now, speak to your CA. There are certain concepts in which you buy the property in the name of a company. So you can transfer the shares of the company into the trust. So this is just an added addendum, Gayatri, since we were speaking on it.
Yeah, I think.
But Aarti, it's a bit of a vague concept, but was I able to make you understand the gist of it?
Yes, you did. Because you said that it was important that kind of all of us made an irrevocable trust. So,
it's something which is not hardly ever done, but I would say it.
Okay. So maybe the later part of the conversation we'll come back to it, because this is something, extremely new and
all the fight between you and our husband now.
No, it is very true when you say that we women don't really invest. I've been working, but I don't think I've ever really invested, because one is, I think, a lack of time. You have a lot of other things that women do juggle around. So it requires a lot of time and energy to get into it, to know what is the right kind of investment.
There are two ways in which you can do this. Okay? And what you're saying is something that I've heard over the years. And try and get yourself a trusted financial advisor, right? It's very, very important for you to start investing. Lack of time is not an adequate justification. It is something that can lead you into such a big mess that later on in life you'll wonder what happened, right? So if you're telling me you don't have time, I'm not okay with it.
Okay. So let's move on to the next question then. So, okay, so we've all understood the importance of, starting early, investing, maybe for women getting into an irrevocable trust. So any general tips for tax saving investments? What are the kind of things?
How you need to handle taxes, go to your CA. He knows your specific situations, right? From an investment perspective, I'm just going to tell you, there are two sections under which you can save tax. It's actually one section, and under that there is a subsection. There is a section called ATC, right? In that ATC, you can save up to $150,000. I'm saying 150,000 rupees per annum per financial year. So what are the instruments that are covered under it? PPF, EPF, your NSC certificates, post office savings for your fixed deposits with 5-year maturity with certain scheduled banks and post offices. Then there is ELSS, equity linked savings schemes, which is also linked to the market, and you can save under this. Have I mentioned senior citizen scheme?
Not yet. Okay.
Yeah. So these are the avenues under which you can save tax under ATC. 150,000 is the upper limit. Now there is a subsection to that called ATCCD, in which you can save an additional 50,000 through the NPS route. Okay, you can buy the NPS. In that, your employer also gets to contribute. So if you're, let's say, working and you pick up this 80CCD, your employer can also contribute an equivalent 50,000. So that works well. It's 50,000 or 10% of your gross salary, whichever is higher is the one, whichever is lesser is the one you have to take.
So you're saying the CAs will be able to give a better reply, but these are the options available.
What is your unique tax situations? There are lots of tax in which ways in which you can save tax, right? Like, for example, if I'm talking about a financial portfolio right now, then short-term losses can be offset against short-term gains and long-term gains. Now, I cannot get into all of that right now because that will take us another 1 hour. But go to your CA, these from a financial investment point of view, 3 things: 80CC, these are the structures, I've given you the names. My personal favorite is either the ELSS or the Provident Fund, PPF, Public Provident Fund under 80C. Under 80CCD, there is NPS that you can take. Number 3, when you're making your capital gain and loss statement, make sure that your losses are offset against gains and gains.
Okay, and we'll take one. So there's a related question to this from Manisha Verma. Let's take it, and then we will move on to the next segment of the conversation. Sure. Manisha, would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question? Manisha is a government servant, and she is saying she has 7 years to go for retirement. Would you like to ask a question, Manisha?
So hi, Hina. I have just been, hi, I'm not switching on my video. I'm still in quarantine and I was tested positive 10 days ago. So still recovering. Thanks for this opportunity. I just wanted to ask you that I have just been like conservative government servants. I have just been putting some of my savings in fixed deposits or GPF or PPF. And now I have 7 years for retirement. So I was thinking very actively that I should be, looking at the low interest rates now banks are giving. I was just thinking that I should need to have some better returns on my savings. So I wanted to understand, are there any thumb rules for, say, mutual funds and stocks and assets and whatever else, that these are the thumb rules and this is how we need to go about it. And when you said that, I also thought of having a financial advisor, but and someone connected me to one of the professional agencies, but when I saw their PPT, what they had sent me, it didn't really invoke much confidence in me about the advice that they were giving. So I thought I can have a more candid and maybe connect with you later in your professional capacity. So right now you could just tell us that whether there are any thumb rules about, how much should a part of it should go in our, because one would, as very hard-earned money, one would want it to be safe also and not be greedy about it, that there are sustained reasonable returns.
And without any... Manisha. Yeah. Would you like to take it?
Firstly, I hope you feel better really soon. And thank you for joining in even while you're going through Corona. But it's heartening to know that, you can be up and talking. So Corona is not that bad. And I wish you have a really mild strain of it. Now, coming to your question, Manisha, see, I can't answer that for you here because finance is like when you go to a doctor, right? There are so many things that the doctor will ask you before they write out a prescription to you. So if you're gonna, I have to know your circumstances. I have to know how many kids you have. Do you have a husband? Who's earning? What have you saved till now? Yes, you saved in PPF, but what's the amount, right? I need to understand all of that. But broadly speaking, you need to think about 2 things, right? When you retire, you have to cater for, let's say, at least till you're 80, if not 85, right? Second, when you get a retirement corpus, right, you also have to ensure that that retirement corpus continues to be of the same value, right? Which is where you have to start beating inflation. Now, PPF and all fixed income is great. 7-8% is okay. Is it enough to build your portfolio? Perhaps not. You're going to have to take some bit of equity exposure. Here, another thumb rule, most people will come and tell you that, if you have a 3-year horizon, 4-year horizon, get into equities. I say no, do not get into equities unless you have at least a 7-year horizon. Number 2 thumb rule is that whenever you invest into equities, especially if you're starting off, do not go whole hog at one go, right? Build it up slowly. So, for example, God forbid, if you invested at the peak of 2008, it took you 7 years to recover, right? So, these 2-3 general points you should keep in mind.
Okay.
And what is the percentage like what proportion is mutual funds and what proportion is stocks? How do you compare the two?
So mutual funds can be of different categories. You can be in a debt fund, you can be in an equity fund, you can be even a commodity fund, right? So mutual fund is not an asset class. It is a means of investing into an asset class. So when you're telling me to compare mutual funds with equity, I'm assuming you're asking me to compare equity mutual funds with direct stocks, right? Let me answer that this way, that I'm in the financial markets, right? Even then, my equity stock portfolio is limited. Why is it limited? The one which is managed directly by me. I'm not talking about PMS and mutual funds, right? Gone are those days when in your parents' days you could pick up a Colgate and just sit on it for the next 20 years and it would do well. Markets are very dynamic now. Sometimes digital does well, sometimes technology does well, like it's done in the recent past. Then you have pharmaceuticals coming up. So you don't want to be stuck in something which will, a large cap, which will give you some bit of returns. You want it dynamically managed and you want to make the most of it. So direct stocks, maybe those thick stocks you can pick up, which will keep chugging along for the next few years. But direct equity, I think if you're starting off and you have zero clue on the markets, I would put you down as zero. Don't go into direct equity at all. It's one thing to pick up stocks, it's another thing to monitor them yearly.
Okay. Thank you for that, Hina. So basically you're saying you must have a minimum 7-year horizon before you get into equities.
Yes, I feel so. Yeah.
So let's move tracks a bit. And how has, Corona is in... Manisha, get well soon. Manisha is now, down with COVID. COVID has impacted. We are locked in our homes. This Gupshup with Gayatri is an outcome of being locked up at home. What has been the impact of COVID on wealth portfolios, Hina?
No, Gayatri, you're going to have to repeat your question. What do you say?
I'm saying, what has been the impact of COVID on wealth portfolios?
Okay. So let's say equity. We're just about 8-9% off from the all-time highs that we hit in January. And I'm talking about Nifty and the broader indices, right? I'm not talking about banking, which is down some 20-30% right now. Pharma's up 30 to 40%, right? But generally overall in the market, we are only 8-9% off from the highs. Then you talk about debt markets because the interest rates have come down. Debt markets, which could have a capital appreciation like bonds, like debt mutual funds, they've rallied. A GSEC fund has given you 13% return. A short-term bond fund has given you in excess of 10% return. So if you stayed invested, you've barely taken a hit, right? Of course, you've taken a hit if you were in financials. But if you panicked, you got out, are you going to get that chance to, because if Nifty is actually rallied 50% from the lows of 7,600 within March to September, 6 months. Are you going to get a repeat of that 50% in 6 months? No. So the learning for you here is when times are uncertain, sometimes inaction is the best action. Don't go complacent. There might be about 20-30% that you might want to book out. You might want to book out of your profits, but to get your equity portfolio down to zero or your debt portfolio down to zero is a bad call.
So you're saying remain invested. Inaction is the best form of action right now.
Not right now. During when there's a crisis and there's panic, inaction is not the it's not inaction is the best. I'm saying take a logical call with your financial advisor, because I know that a lot of people during the panic made their investments to zero, which is a wrong decision, right? I personally, as an investment advisor, when the market had bounced back to about 10,500, we took out our profits. Some 20% of our profits were taken out. So you have to make those, there is a strategic long-term portfolio. There are some tactical measures that you have to put in. So it has to be a combination of everything.
Yeah. Okay, great. Which brings me to the next question, because we are discussing, we've had the strange paradox in India where between the 1st of April and 30th of June, the economy is contracted by 24%, but the stock market has kind of increased by 26%.
Stock markets increased by 50%.
Between April and June.
Acha, April and now I was reading.
So how do you explain this contradiction? I mean, to a layman, I mean, it seems really strange that if the GDP is contracting by 24%, how come, what is driving this upsurge in the markets?
Markets in the short run are hardly ever reflective of the economy, right? What happens in the short run is there are a number of factors that play out. Sentiment is one, liquidity is the other one, right? So this particular run-up that's happened has happened on account of liquidity, in my opinion, right? There is a McKinsey report which reads that as of June or July, I'm forgetting the date of the report, some $10 trillion have been released into the market, released into countries, right? Some of it will find its way into equity. Some of it will find its way into different asset classes like gold, like debt, right? So the run-up in our markets has been on account of liquidity. Now, when I was further analyzing it, your domestic institutions and your mutual funds have not been contributors in this run-up. It's mostly been by FIIs, which is foreign FPIs, which we call foreign investors. Another interesting interesting fallout that's happened is that retail investors have come in, right? So a lot of people are sitting at home trying to make a little bit of money. So I'm sure you all would have read it. It was out in the newspapers recently, about a month back, that the demat accounts during this time has grown by about 10%. And in the fund manager circles, there is also some bit of news, but that's not substantiated. We don't have numbers for that a lot of betting money has also come in. So yeah, it's some bit of fraud, some bit of genuine FII money. Some months DIIs, which is domestic institutions like LIC, have been positive. With domestic institutions and mutual funds, it's been a mixed bag, but it's basically on account of liquidity.
So do you think this this paradoxical situation is going to continue?
Carry on?
Yeah, carry on.
Okay, so before I give you a call on the market, you're essentially asking me to give you a call on the market, right? And fund manager.
That's what it sounds like. Yeah. Okay.
So in the short run, to be honest with you, Gayatri, if I knew which way it was going, I'd probably be sitting in my own private island somewhere. So in the short run, nobody really knows where the stock market's going to go. It's like, if you have a drunk person coming towards you, you don't know if he's going to fall before he reaches you, right? So that's what it is about stock markets in the shorter run.
Yeah.
But having said that, if I want to give out a call, this is what my reading of the market is. There has been a correction in the market last week, and then, last week it's been 800 points up, 800 points down. It's been crazy. Whenever you enter the equity market, a 10-15% correction, you should always be ready for, right? Do I see it as a bear market correction? A bear market correction is technically defined as a 30% correction. It's when all hell breaks loose. No, yeah. I'm not seeing this as a bear market correction. When will that happen? I don't think it's going to happen right now. see, even Fed has come out and said for the next 3 years, they are going to remain soft on the interest rates. So if there is easy money that is coming into the system, or the central bankers are not saying that, okay, give me back the money, then the money is here to stay. And if the money is here to stay, your markets are here to stay.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for taking and giving us such an honest answer, Hina. I mean, I know people, it's a very difficult question to answer because, as you're saying, the stock market could go anyway. Okay.
Yeah. That's why I stick to the 7-year rule and stick to investing.
Okay. So, another aspect of investing, we see many wealthy Indians have been buying property overseas, London, New York, Dubai. Is it a good investment decision? I mean, apart from we're not looking at citizenship and all that here, but purely as an investment decision, is it a good idea to invest in property overseas?
Gayatri, I can't answer that for you because I don't know the dynamics of even the Indian property market. I'm a financial advisor. So to say what as an investment decision, how it will be overseas, London, you're talking London, you're talking US, which part of US, I have no idea on that. But what I can tell you is that there is something called liberalized remittance scheme, right? Under that, you can remit up to $250,000 per financial year per person. You can use this money for property, for investments. There are certain restrictions on that investments. For example, you can't use it anywhere that calls for a margin call. So derivatives, perhaps not. But you can buy property, you can do unlisted stocks, you can do bonds, you can do proper equities. Any of that is available to you.
Okay, so someone who's into real estate would be able to give a better answer. It's not, I mean, just because, we've received so many different questions. I mean, people talk of financial planning and, they've put forth so many different questions. I think let's take an audience question here. I can see that Sanjana has asked that if a grandparent is sending some money to the grandchildren, is that also taxed? Is it a gift to a grandchild? Is that taxed?
No.
No?
Gift tax is not applicable, grandparent to grandchild. Assuming both are resident Indians.
Assuming both are resident Indians. Okay. But if they are NRIs, I mean, if say the grandchild is a foreign national, then that will be different. Then there'll be tax implications.
Yeah, you will have to check with the tax country there. As per India, you will not be taxed. There are 7 blood relations within which you don't get taxed. Gift tax does not apply.
Okay. 7 blood relations. So can you mention them?
It's I think spouse, parents, grandparents. Yeah, just Google it.
Okay. I mean, okay. So there's also a question about gold. Is that a good investment to have in today's day and age? I mean, we women, I can speak for myself. I think I also love my gold. Is that in the pandemic or even otherwise, how would you recommend gold as a good investment?
Okay, so I'm going to tell you something out here. There is a 4-part video that I've done on gold, right? It is available on my YouTube channel called Wealth Creation with Hina. That channel is basically for people like us who, want to know about basics, right? We had a question earlier that I did not trust my financial advisor. So that channel is basically for you to get to know the basics to the extent that a financial advisor cannot make a fool of you, and for you to know those trends. Have a look at that. Have a look at those videos for gold. But just to answer your question out here, I'll give you again my call on gold. Gold is a commodity which is even more volatile than equity. Okay, unlike traditional wisdom. Now, gold essentially moves in plateaus. So it'll go up. Okay, then it'll stay this way for a while. Then again, it'll go up. Then again, it'll stay this while. So the right time to pick up gold was actually 2017-18. And to be very honest with you, we did pick it up. Right now, is the party over for gold? No. Why? Because as long as there is liquidity and fear psychosis in the market, this is an asset class which will continue to receive money. Is it going to be volatile from here on? Yes. It's going to be volatile. Is most of the party over? I would say 50 to 60 more. I would say at least 60-65% of the party is over, but it's not the end of the road yet for gold.
Okay. So, I mean, if you want to buy a jewelry, ladies, then we should just buy it and not cloak it as investment.
Gayatri, you should actually. Okay, here's one thing which I want to tell you, which might make sense for you here. If you're, let's say, buying jewelry for yourself, it's a consumption item. If you're buying gold for an investment, it's totally different. There are various ways in which you can buy gold. You can buy through an exchange traded fund. There were the sovereign gold bond funds. You can buy in physical gold in terms of your bars and your coins, right? When you're buying jewelry, the making charges, that's not the best way of investing in gold. Just do paper gold, which is much easier now. Now you can even buy gold on PhonePe and Google Pay, all of that you can buy. It's very easy to buy gold. Now, let's say you want to buy gold for your children. Let's say you want to buy gold for your daughter, and happy Daughter's Day, everybody. Yeah. My suggestion would be buy it in paper form, right? And then convert that paper form when your child gets married. You know what the design and everything else will be at that point in time. And then convert it to business.
Okay. That's helpful. So I'm just saying, no. I think enough. Do we have any more audience questions before we move to the next segment of the conversation?
I just wanted to ask about the trust formation, since Hina mentioned about the trust. Can one do that oneself, or do you need professional help to help set up a trust, Hina?
You need professional help.
I'm sure you need professional help. Yeah.
You have to be very careful while making a trust. And you have to actually lay down what are the eventualities under which you will get money. You have to make it very watertight. It takes typically a year to make a trust.
And this is something you do with your CA, you're saying, or with a financial advisor?
No, there are certain organizations. Your CSC, if you want to do it very professionally, then you go to these trust organizations. Barclays, I think, has got trust. Then AmiCorp has got trust. But personally, if you're making a small trust, I don't suggest you go there because they're very expensive. You know, they'll charge you for every signature that happens. Go to your CA in combination with the lawyer, you make trust. There is specialized lawyer come CAs who do it.
Specialized lawyers come CA who can help?
Not some CA, lawyers, CA groups who do it.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gayatri, I wanted to ask a question on NPS.
Okay, Madhu, yeah, please go ahead, Madhu. Yes.
Yeah. So, Hina, I just wanted you to throw a little bit more light on NPS. What I wanted to know in particular maybe is like, what's the highest investment that you can do irrespective of the tax benefit? And like where, as I understand, probably we can invest through various different institutions. So maybe which is the best way to do it? And so your take on it.
Yeah, so Madhu, on NPS, like I said, there is a section called 80CCD in which you can get the tax benefit, in which you are allowed 50,000. If you'd opt outside it, I don't think there is the limit, but I'm not sure. I will have to check that out. In fact, I've got my notes, and if you have time at the end of it, I'll just check that out. It's there on my Excel sheet.
Yeah, in fact, that's what I wanted to know. I know that 50,000 is the limit for the tax benefit. I wanted to know that outside of that.
Another 50.
Sorry?
As an employee, 50, your employer can do another 50. So we're talking 1 lakh in total here.
Acha, no, I'm self-employed.
Acha, then 50.
Okay,
Yeah,
so are you saying that you can't even do more than 50?
I'm saying I don't know. I'm not sure about it. What I remember is there is no 50. There is a limit beyond which you can do 50.
Yeah.
I don't remember it offhand, but that's some information which is available on the net, and you can easily check it out. Alternatively, back after the meeting, I'll refer to my notes and tell you.
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. Any best institution through which we can invest?
And मेरा तो CA कर देता. I tell the CA.
Okay.
Yeah.
ठीक है, no problem. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Hena. Yeah, thanks, Madhu. So, and any more, personalized questions, we can address it to Hena at Wealth Creation by Hena. She has a social media page. You take these kind of questions there, Hena?
Wealth creation with Hena. To be honest, Gayatri, yeah, I will take it, but I'm not somebody who's constantly on YouTube. It's not that I've done it for any purpose of money or any purpose of anything. So bear with me if I get back to you in some time, because I don't check my channels on an everyday basis.
Yeah, sure.
I will get back to you if you ask me.
Thanks. Okay, Hena, just one technical thing. Can you make the admin the co-host again so that he can admit people?
Okay, I don't know how to do that. How am I
Go
supposed
to go to participants, see admin, and there's the option make him host. Make host.
Participants, okay.
Yeah.
Go to admin, yes.
Yeah, and make host. So the more, go to the more option. Yeah.
Make host.
Make
Okay.
host, yeah. Thanks. So then he can admit. Yeah. Okay. Chalo.
I'll be back.
Now,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you. Okay. So I think we have another 10 minutes to go. So let me get, let's, talk about your personal aspect also. Hena, do you still swim? You might not know, Hena used to be the swimming captain at LSR. We were batchmates and classmates, and Hena was really into sports and the swimming champion. Swimming captain, do you still get time to swim?
Yeah, Gayatri, swimming is my passion. And I think that my biggest thing about COVID is that the swimming pools are shut.
Yeah.
That's one place you can literally call me a mermaid. It's my nirvana time.
Yeah. So I have to tell you, Hena, that, when I look at you today, sometimes I really feel that you're putting, you're telling Indra Nui that she's wrong. When she says a woman can't have it all, I look at you, touch word, you have a successful career, happy marriage, loving children. How are you doing it all, Hena? Tell us the secret.
Just looks rosy from the outside. I keep having these thappar moments with my husband. It's okay.
Thappar moments.
But again, I've known
But
each
it
other.
mustn't be easy. It's a Sunday evening. I'm sure it's not easy. Any tips you'd like to give young girls joining the corporate sector, wanting to join this profession?
Gayatri, it's very tough. As a working mother, it's very, very, very tough. Okay. Like I said, past 3-4 weeks, if you literally count down it, I don't think I've taken a holiday this month. At the end of the day, whatever said and done, thankfully I'm supported by a lot. My parents are just around the corner. My mother actually during non-COVID times comes and helps me with my son's homework. I have 2 maids who've been around with me for more than a decade. So I have a very good support structure. But at the end of the day, the softer issues of the children, house is something that can still get managed, but the softer issues of the children, you just have to be there at the forefront. And it's tough. What else can I say?
Yeah, no, let's just say that you're doing a jolly good job of it. So keep at it, Hena. And I remember you, even in college, you were always a go-getter. And I had special respect for your ability to wear what you wore in the DTC buses of Delhi.
Ask me this.
No, yeah, but it's great to see you as a financial advisor. Let's see any more questions from the audience before any specific questions. I think the trust has really
Evoked interest.
yeah, a lot of because what we were I think we are at that stage. I know that I'm at the stage where I'm thinking of drawing a will, and it's always like a nominee and have your name in accounts, joint accounts. But this trust is something I will also need to go and
Do some research on it. It's not as easy as it sounds. Like I said, it takes a year to build it.
yeah.
But at least, keep 50 lakhs, 1 crore for yourself.
You need that much. Okay. So there's an audience question on property market, but as you mentioned, is that for a real estate or
Don't
would you
know
like
much about the property market. In the financial investment sphere of things, we play it through REITs. But I'll give you my personal opinion about property. Say property has got hit on a lot of structural grounds, right? demonetization, the fact that there's oversupply compared to the demand, especially in Gurgaon side where we live, NCR side. So is it going to climb up in a hurry? No. But remember, one asset class can't stay down forever, right? Now, North Indians have this very bad habit of overexposing in property, okay? And I know that these clients deviate right from property to fixed deposit and no other asset class, which is a big faux pas, right? Now 10 years, property is not gone anywhere. Now everybody is crying. So asset allocation is very important, but never over allocate in property.
Never over allocate in property.
It's very, it is not even a liquid asset, right? When you're stuck, what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, for some people, I mean, most of the life savings, at least the earlier generation, they would put into building a house. And as you're saying, it was a completely illegal.
Gold, real estate, everything was a different thing because financial instruments were not that developed, right? Today, we've got a full-fledged market on all sides. Why would you allocate into property? Gayatri, is somebody raising a hand? There's a lady with Galaxy.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I'll just unmute her. You have to unmute yourself, Dolly Bua. Mrs. Nirja Sharma. Yeah, you have to unmute yourself. Yes.
Am I unmuted?
Yes, you are. Please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Love your red lips.
Yeah, hi. Hina.
Yes.
Thank you. Hina, see, I'm a senior citizen and I today have, say, an income of 2.5 lakhs or so for my lifestyle, whatever I'm doing right now, whatever I need right now. What I want to ask you is, say 10 years down the line, how much would I need as an income taken?
Answer indexation.
Should be how much? How much should I get?
What is indexation?
Handle inflation.
Take into account the inflation.
Should my corpus be 10 years later?
So,
Sorry.
Yeah, that's my question.
Yeah, so basically you have to build in an inflation, build in anything over 7% or 8%.
Inflation.
And I will give you this answer post this call because I need to get onto a system where they can calculate it. So what I have to do is, let's say, compound that 7% inflation into your today's expenditure to tell you what the corpus should be.
Yeah, okay. I'll get that answer for you from Hina. Yeah, I think Suparna had also raised her hand. We'll take one more time.
Yeah, I can hear.
Hi, Hina. Hi, Gayatri.
Hi.
I want to know, how do you deal with clients who are very demanding and have unrealistic expectations?
Bring down the expectations, otherwise they'll bring you down. At the end of the day, they'll say, "Maine to 15 pe bola tha. Where is my 15?" You have to come back and say, "Maine to nahi bola tha 15 pe." So it's very important that you be honest and underestimate what you can deliver. Otherwise, both you and your client will not be sleeping.
Have you had some experience with a client like this, Hina? Like the one Suparna?
You know what? I try my best, Gayatri, to be very honest and upfront because I don't like sleepless nights. Okay, I don't like the fact that somebody is expecting something and you can't deliver. As it is, the stock market drives you crazy, right? Fact of the matter is, when markets go down and things do turn bad, some clients tend to forget what you told them and they come back to you, and that time you have to put your foot down and say, "No, I'm sorry, I never said that." And you have to remind them, and I write my call reports, right? So I refer back to them and I remind them that this is what our conversation was. But luckily for me, my bigger chunk of my clients, right, they've been around with me for 20 years. So they've been through ups and downs in the market. Sometimes, on that side, I think I'm more worried than they are. They've never really called me up or I have to tell you this incident also, which I think was really nice. We lost some money in a Reliance debenture because according to us, they committed a fraud. They siphoned off the money in that company. And I went back to my clients. Believe me, we were like 7 of them in that. Not one of them blamed me. You know, they understood it. So yes, there's something right that we're doing.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think we've answered all the questions. So on that note, there are, okay, just one more question. Okay, we'll take one last question. Hina, is there time for one last question?
I'm available to you forever, like you ask.
Thank you, you're a sweetheart. Okay, any views on inflation protected securities and SBI's ATI?
81 bonds.
Okay, 81. I've shown my ignorance, yes.
Inflation protection, in my opinion, can only be given to you by gold and equities. Debt has to be a part of your portfolio, but is it likely to beat inflation in the long run? It will perhaps at best match it. And even when I'm talking gold, I'm talking about gold in INR. Gold in dollars will just match your inflation, but in INR, because of certain factors, its statistics show that it's beaten. What was your second question, Gayatri? 81 bonds.
SBI, yeah. 80, yeah.
Okay, so bonds are of various categories. 81 bonds is one such category. It's you're talking about the SBI perpetual bond out here. The perpetual bond out, I'm thinking you're talking about the perpetual bond here because that's the one which is floating around right now, is something which goes on in entirety. I mean, it is supposed to go on in entirety. It has a call option date. All bonds get called on the call option date. There's been maybe 1 or 2 incidences where they've not got called on the option date. So if I look at SBI, yes, I'll take a credit call on it. Basically, because I know that at the end of the day, if SBI sinks, India will sink. So I would go ahead with the 81 of SBI.
Okay, so I think, okay. Thank you.
Maybe not, but left to the fact that it can't fail because it's too big, I would go in for it.
Okay, yeah. SBI is too big to fail. Absolutely, yes. I think it's
it's
okay.
riding at about 7.5 right now. SBI 81.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Thank you, Mishra ji. I hope you've got your answer. Yes.
Yes, I did. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So I think with that we come to a wrap of today's Gupshup. Thank you, Hina. Thank you. You've given us so much to think about: the irrevocable trust, the inheritance tax, the SBI bonds, gold as an investment, paper gold. I'm sure all of us are, I think going to get back and get in touch with a lawyer, CA, financial planner. Look up your social media channel, Wealth Management with Hina.
Wealth Creation with Hina.
Creation with Hina. So thank you for being on Gupshup with Gayatri, Old World Conversations with New Age Technology. Till the next one.
Thank you so much, everybody, for coming in. And thanks, Gayatri, for having me. And it was, like always, you've always been very sweet. Even in college, you were this girl with always a smile on her face, and that continues to stay. And thanks for having me over.
Yeah. So till the next Gupshup with Gayatri, हंसते रहिए, मुस्कुराते रहिए. Bye-bye. Thank you, Hina. Great going. Just keep going. You're doing a phenomenal job.
Thanks, Gayatri.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.